Okay, so we're back. Sorry about that. The last video ran out of space on room on my computer, so I had to delete a couple of things. So we're going to continue the final video in two parts. So here we see where Iggy, Waldman, and Victoria begin to work on a male corpse. Victoria eventually abandons the corpse that Waldman and Iggy procured, although the series perhaps nods to Victor's more violent destruction of the corpse by having Victoria accidentally smear blood on her forehead. And she's going to do that here in just a minute. So Victoria remains bizarrely oblivious as the blood drips down her face, and Iggy's straight-faced reaction to her, especially as they discuss her ghoulishness, suggested this illusion as being played for laughs. The fact that Waldman has procured the body at Iggy's request highlights the ways in which Victoria's scientific discovery has been co-opted by her male peers in keeping with scientific convention. They want to show that her initial experiment in revivifying Robert can be replicated, even though they're trying to stop the monster that she created. So this episode is also notable for Iggy's increased role. Iggy initially appears to be sort of a sideshow, accidentally killing himself in the first episode, as we saw, and serving as an affable subject for Victoria's experiments. But I think we need to pay attention to the way his last name links him to the moral center of Mary Shelley's novel, the de Lacy family. This illusion is only partially explained when Victoria encounters the creature and asks if they have been teaching him to speak. That's an allusion to Shelley's novel where the creature learns to speak and read by observing the de Lacy family. In a sense, though, Iggy, as we see here on the screen, serves as a reminder of how information is always already mediated. His name both alludes to a series of adaptations of Shelley's source texts and also marks the web series' distance from these texts. When Iggy phones Waldman to pick up the body and requests a coffee and scone, the expected power dynamic between professor and student is inverted. Waldman becomes Iggy's errand boy. Okay, now when Waldman appears in a black hoodie carrying the illicitly procured corpse, which he relied on his criminal network of friends in order to circumvent medical ethics, it's worth noting that Victoria also circumvents the law in borrowing Agatha from a nearby genetics lab, not to mention the materials taken from Waldman's lab and requisitioning Robert's body. On the one hand, Waldman's emulation of Victoria's illegal behavior might seem to remove gender as a factor, but it instead serves to highlight Iggy's more astute manipulation of the system. While Victoria is only able to secure Waldman's grudging consent to use the lab, Waldman treats Iggy as a peer and at times as his superior. The male authority figure that frustrates Victoria's scientific research is willing to break the law to provide his male protege Iggy with the resources to conduct the exact same experiment. So by associating the body of the creature with a single individual, Robert, the web series joins the debate in Shelley's novel and its subsequent adaptations over the significance of the body and the self. Whale's adaptation, as you remember, hinges on the substitution of the normal brain with the abnormal brain by the assistant Fritz, in a sequence which is alluded to in Frankenstein MD when Iggy asked Waldman if the second corpse was procured by Fritz. The film adaptation thus seeks to locate monstrosity in the brain Fritz stole from the creature by augmenting Robert's body with skin grafts, 3D printed bones, and artificial blood instead of other bodies. Frankenstein MD raises different questions about the boundaries of the self and identity. So I think this is a good time for us to think about the ways in which Shelley's Frankenstein and Frankenstein MD both engage with Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto, which we read last week, and how it anticipates the way in which Frankenstein MD raises the questions of the boundaries of the human. Now, this is a quotation. In the wake of science fiction's appropriation of the Frankenstein myth, one sometimes forgets that Shelley's creation was not a robot. With the advent of genetic engineering and cybernetic technologies, notions of artificiality have changed. The monster is no robot, but a flesh and blood construction like ourselves. Indeed, as Haraway contends, most people in the West today are cyborgs. They have internalized technology so completely that their identities have been transformed. And that's the end of the quotation. And that's taken from an article by Jay Clayton. Nevertheless, in Frankenstein MD, the result of this internalization of technology is to create not Robert, a creature as profoundly isolated as Shelley's. So interestingly, Frankenstein MD places Robert both at the edge and the center of the narrative. He is both the outermost frame narrator as camera person and editor in the beginning of the series, but also the narrative center in that he becomes the creature, the not Robert. By having the cameraman and editor appear on screen as the creature, Frankenstein MD paralyzed Victoria's revivification of Robert with Pemberley Digital's resurrection and remediation of Frankenstein from the novel to a transmedia series. But the conflation of Waldman and the creature also shifts the frame narrative of Shelley's novel to more directly engage the viewer and the reader. After Robert's death, Victoria cannot rely on him as an audience or editor. Instead, she edits her own work for an internet audience, and she increasingly engages on social media as hashtag creature sighting indicates. Thus, viewers, and not Walton, must learn from her cautionary tale. So, Victoria suggests that her viewers are culpable for not stopping her. An essential conceit of the last episodes of the show is a running gag of sorts about who is watching the show and who is not. When Waldman delivers a second corpse to the home laboratory and expects his involvement to remain unknown, Iggy quips, quote, "I guess it's pretty clear at this point that he's not watching the show." On a more serious note, Victoria attempts to tell the authorities about the creature and sends them leaks to videos, which they predictably do not watch. In contrast, her call for viewers to tweet her if she sees the creature is successful, and selected tweets are reformatted into the timeline she posted on her blog on October 20th and incorporated